Hey y'all, Betty here with Compliant Healthcare Solutions. Welcome to another edition for our healthcare happenings. I am pleased to have my friend and colleague, Beth Schleeper. I have so much trouble saying your name. I always have to slow down. Beth Schleeper with us today. So we're going to talk about some frontline stuff and the importance of how the frontline affects billing and all the good stuff that they do. Welcome, Beth. Glad to have you as a
Thank
full
you.
guest this time. I know you came on before for a little bit, but today we're going to have you for the full time.
Yay. I'm excited.
Yay. Good. And I see, Haley is coming in. Hey, Haley, good to see you. And Lady, our good friend Lady is
Hi,
always there.
lady.
How you doing? Hope everybody's well and doing well with the weathers and everything going on. Beth, for those of y'all that are unfamiliar with her, is the owner of Advanced Coding Services. And she has been in the industry for over 28 years. I still got a few years on you, Beth. With medical billing and coding. She is the CEO, as I said, of Advanced Coding Services. She's out of Phoenix, Arizona. I love Arizona. But you see, we get the hot with the humid. Y'all get the hot with the dry.
Right.
So I always say, what's the dry heat? No, 110 is still 110. So
Right. It's still hot.
and she has been all this time through medical billing, coding, consulting. She also had prior to this was in business with her father, correct?
Yes.
With TNT Consulting. I love that name. So they were a medical billing and coding firm that was located and practicing, helping practices all throughout the United States. Beth, um, you've been in for 28 years. So you started, how did the TNT consulting come in and the flow for things for you?
Well, so the whole backstory, I was pregnant with my son, and I said to my dad, who he owned Timpson Tax Service. He had an accounting and income tax prep service. I said to my dad, look, I don't want to pay somebody to raise my son. And he said, and that was my lunch break. I was working for a DME company. That was my lunch break. And he goes, then come at me with a business plan, write something up, and we'll talk about what we could do. That was my lunch break. I had dinner with my dad and with my parents. Um, and by that night, we had formed TNT Consulting. And the rest is history. We just started a revenue cycle management company. We did the consult. We do. I mean, we still have TNT Consulting, and we do the revenue cycle management consulting um, and the consulting, and we still have the accounting and the income tax prep. He's no longer with me, but the business still goes. And part of that was that running the revenue cycle management, we were an extern site for those big box schools where we would have somebody come in and we were trying to give them real life experience on what it's like to do billing and to do coding. Um, and it was so amazing that these people were coming out of that school with thousands of dollars of debt and they had no idea really what it was like. And so we had part of our business plan was that we would start our own billing and coding program to give people real life experiences so they would know what it was really like, with the intent that they weren't going to go thousands of dollars in debt to do that. And so that was a plan. And then he passed in 2012. And in 2015, actually, a friend of mine came to me in 14 and said, Beth, I own Advanced Coding Services. I want to retire. Can you take it? Yes. Thank you very much. So we worked out a deal, and by June 1st of 2015, I owned Advanced Coding Services, and the rest is history. So we've just been working, trying to educate, make sure that people get the knowledge that they need to have a career.
So what then does Advanced Coding Services do that is separate from TNT Consulting?
So TNT Consulting is the revenue cycle. So we're actually doing the work. So Advanced
Okay.
Coding Services is really our education limb or our arm. Or that's our education, and that's where we are teaching individuals and helping them get their certifications. They're getting their coding, they're getting the billing, auditing, compliance, wherever it is that they're needing. They're getting that education. But then, because we don't want to just teach you and leave you, we stay with you, and that's why we have the memberships, so that you can continue to earn your CEUs through our memberships. And then we also have our retreats, which you have been a part of. San Diego is a great fun. I hope you had a lot of fun there, Betty.
Oh, I
But
love
we also
that.
do the retreats because it's also about building community. That we're all in the same industry, and there's enough space for all of us that this is where we start to develop that community. That if I have a question about E&M, Betty, you're going to be my go-to. If I have a question about the Federal Register, Christine Hall is my go-to. Those are those places, because now we have built that community. And that's what the retreat is. Oh, by the way, you get CEUs for attending the retreat, but that's really the intent, is to build that camaraderie and community that we have connections in our professional world.
That is so nice. And I see Miss Christine Hall is on with us today. Hey,
Oh,
Christine.
hello. I see
And
Lexi's on.
yep, of course, Lexi. Lexi just had a birthday, so happy birthday,
She
Lexi.
did.
Yes, and Sonal is on too. So hey, Sonal, glad you
Yay.
can make it with us today. So good with the retreats. I think the retreats are fabulous, and for those of y'all that are on here, if you get a chance to attend one of these, and we'll talk about the latest coming one here in a minute. They are really fabulous. It's nice and close, and you really get to spend a lot of time with the speakers, and not just at the time that they're presenting, but also like when we're eating and when we're just hanging out. We have game night which seems to be a big hit with people. So you really get to hang out with us, those of us that are speaking too, and so you get to kind of build that deeper networking that's more than just a networking kind of feel. At least to me, it's more of a relationship
Yes.
that you're getting into. So I think that's what's really special about these retreats. Conferences are wonderful. Conferences are great. But sometimes conferences are so large that, you lose some of that feeling in there. I've told you before, Beth, when I'm speaking, sometimes I've been presenting, and nobody wants to ask questions while you're talking, and nobody, because they don't want to be the one out of the crowd, so people get very quiet. And then when I'm done, as I'm packing up my stuff, I'll have a line of 20 people, that want to ask me the questions then. Well, at that point, I'm trying to get my stuff, get off stage so the next speaker can get on stage. And maybe I'm speaking somewhere else, or I need to get somewhere else. So I can't really spend time with them then. It's just, I'm like talking as I'm wrapping my cords up, I can't even look at them because I'm like, I got to move. I got to, so you don't really get to ask things and to know that person. Whereas at the retreats, if there was something that I talked about that came to you later, well, when we're having lunch, you can say, hey, Betty, when you were talking about this, I thought of this thing, or how does that work with this? And, we have time to sit and answer those kinds of things in a relaxed atmosphere. So you don't have to wear a suit, and you don't have to, it's not stuffy. People were in shorts and jeans and flip flops and, whatever, however you feel comfortable, which makes it easier too for people to feel comfortable, I think, and to ask questions then, and to make learning a little bit easier, because you're not paying attention to, oh, is my hair okay? And did I, you can just pay attention to what's going on and be there. And I think that's just fantastic. I think your idea is just brilliant. And so along with, know I'm not speaking out of turn, but could speak for Sonal and Christine in saying that, we wholeheartedly, are behind this and think that it's just fabulous. So to that end, I just want to show everybody the next one coming up in September is in New York.
Yes.
And so I think on this one, we don't have, this one doesn't have the link to it. And I saw Lexi was putting some links in there, and I think she already put the link into it for it. So if you look in the chat, thank you, Lexi, for doing that. The link to going here is in there. And if you want to, Beth, give just a quick rundown of, how the retreat works and, what people are going to get included and all that stuff.
So we have check-in. So check-in is from 4 to 6 on Friday night, September 22nd. We just have check-in. It's very informal. Come with your food. I mean, come with food or come with that you've already eaten. Our first session is going to be, I think, 6 or 6:30. And that's really kind of where we talk about who's here and what are your specialties, what are your strengths, what do you hope to gain from the weekend. That's kind of our networking session. And then we just kind of have some time hanging out with each other. And then Saturday, we get right into the actual education. We have some leadership. We have Christine is going to talk about the Federal Register. Who knew? We have the Federal Register. I think Sonal is going to talk about, I'm trying to do this from memory, I'm sorry. I think Sonal is going to talk about something about audits, TPE. I feel like TPE.
Yes, I think that's what she said she was doing. Yes, the Target
Yes.
Probe and Educate.
Yes. We have Carlene Dietrich, who is amazing with out-of-network appeals and ERISA stuff. She's going to talk to us. Pam Vanderbilt is going to speak to us about leadership in the revenue cycle, how we can be leaders wherever we are, regardless of our place in the practice. Chris Chapman is amazing. He is an IT guru. And he's going to talk to us about making sure that we are locked down from a HIPAA perspective, but also from an IT perspective of, is our staff leaving us exposed by going out to Facebook or other network social media places? And are they clicking on links that they shouldn't in their emails? And so he's really going to talk to us about places that we need to be aware of so that we're not exposed from an IT perspective, because we could get hijacked, right? We could get encrypted, and then we're toast. Yes, Christine Hall is going to talk about the Medicare proposed fee schedule for next year, and what does that look like, and can we make a difference? Can we make comments and stuff? So the theme for this is, because it's in the fall and it's our season of change, so we're going to talk about the season of change is upon us, and it's ICD-10 coming out, and all of the new things that are coming out for 24. So I'm really excited for what we're going to do. So what's included? So you get your and so a couple people have said this to me over the last couple of days. It kind of looks like sleepaway camp. It kind of is.
When you were a kid, it is. Yep.
It kind of is. It's kind of like adult sleepaway camp, but we're on campgrounds, but we are not camping. We're not in tent camps. We're in cabins. We're in lodges. So please don't think that you need to bring a tent.
I tell you, Beth, I love you, but I'm not in a tent for nobody. That would be
I am right there with you. We are not tent camping. We are in cabins. We are in dorms and lodges. And so I'm really excited for what that's going to look like. So what's included is your lodging for Friday night and Saturday night. What's included is also your meals for all day Saturday and Sunday. So you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner on Saturday, and you have breakfast and lunch on Sunday. Of course, we're going to have snacks and all kinds of fun and games. We do have game night, and truly, like, that's not on my schedule, but it's what happens just organically. It started when we started our very first one in Prescott. It just was a natural thing. People were like, hey, can we stay in the room and play games? And sure, knock yourself out. And I'll tell you, that's when some of the most meaningful conversations have happened. Because we're just playing games, we're just playing cards, or we're putting puzzles together. and conversation just is happening naturally. And that's where we get some of our most meaningful conversation. I will tell you, and I don't know if this is fair to do this here. Um, because I've heard that this is kind of like sleepaway camp, and maybe that's a turnoff for some people. I don't know. So next year, I'm looking at and exploring the option of, instead of doing it at the, by the way, all of these are retreat centers, so it's not like it's a camp. I mean, they're camps, but they're all retreat centers. But we're thinking about next year, instead of doing it in New York and Hudson Valley, maybe looking at, because when we do it in San Diego, we do it at Point Loma Nazarene University. Well, there's a Nazarene University in Boston that's 15 minutes from Logan Airport that we're looking at doing. So if people think that they would rather come and stay with us on the university campus as opposed to Mirror Lake Retreat Center in Hudson Valley, New York, I would like to hear that. I would value people's opinions and thoughts on that. And I don't think it takes away from the concept. It just gives us a different place of where we can be, as opposed to a campground, because some people are like, camp is like, they hear camp or campground and they think sleepaway camp. But really, it's a retreat. And I think of it like, if you've ever been at church and you've done the ladies' retreats, the women's retreats, that's really where it is. And that's really where we kind of unplug and we get away from our daily life and we go to this place with other like-minded individuals, right? Because we're all in this healthcare spectrum. And we just have those conversations. And I'll tell you, my husband, he's like, you guys go at it, because I'm going to stay here because you're speaking a whole different language. Because we're all talking about healthcare and billing and coding and who used this and who used that and what does this mean. And really, for most of the spouses, they're like, I'm glad that you have a friend that speaks that language, because it's not me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then for the next one after this is going to be in Arizona, right?
Right. It's so New York is September 22nd through the 24th. The one in Arizona is Prescott, Arizona, and it's October 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Okay.
So
now I can't make it to New York. Unfortunately, I can't be speaking there, but I'm trying to arrange where I can get on the schedule for October.
Nice.
But definitely for next year, I'll make sure that I have my schedule planned out to be on the docket for them. So yes, because I love it, and I really think it's a great thing. So y'all check it out. I put the link in. Lexi's been putting some stuff in. I think Christine put some stuff for Allegiant Air in there too. So, everybody's giving some good information here. So check it out, y'all. Go to Advanced Coding Services, to the link that I gave, and check out the retreats. And hopefully y'all can join in sometime.
Yes.
All right. So now on to our topic for today. We're going to be talking about the front office staff and what their importance is to revenue cycle and things like that. So in being in what your experience and your 28 years plus in doing this, what are your thoughts on how front desk members contribute to that overall efficiency and effectiveness of a medical billing process, at a practice? What is their important role there?
That's the very start of the billing process, right? So when the patient calls to schedule the appointment, that's the very beginning of the billing process. When they call to schedule, our first questions are, yes, I can get you scheduled. Let me verify. Please tell me what your address is. Please tell me what your insurance is, because I need to know that at the front desk, because I need to verify benefits and eligibility before that patient ever presents to the practice on their scheduled appointment. Because without that information, we're blind. So I have had practices, and I have a practice that they're so loosey-goosey, and it's so frustrating, because what should have taken 10 to 14 days to get a claim processed and paid is taking 3 times longer, simply because we don't have the right insurance information, or somebody keyed it in incorrectly, or We never verified their benefits and eligibility. So we really don't know. Oh, by the way, Dr. So and so is not the PCP for that that plan. So it's important that the front desk is trained correctly to know the questions to ask, to know the information to obtain, so that our providers are getting paid. And oh, by the way, if our provider doesn't get paid, guess who else doesn't get paid? The front desk, right? Because if there's no cash flow in the practice, there's no money for payroll. And
Yep.
that's we need to remember that.
Yes, yes. I think too, from my experiences in practices, the front desk people, and years ago it used to be a lot worse. Hopefully, in larger places we're seeing that getting better, but the front desk person was everything.
Right.
They answered the phones, they scheduled appointments, they checked patients in, they checked patients out. Sometimes they were entering in charges, while they were also doing the other things. And, before we had computer systems, I mean, we were doing all of this by hand,
Right.
And keeping a book, a scheduling book. So you
Yes.
had to have that out. And then you had to, get it for their charges with the encounter form. And then you had to get them the paper receipt. And, so you were doing like 20 different things.
Right.
And traditionally, they've been, like a lower paid position in the
Yes.
office, and when I speak with doctors, private practices, when I'm working with them, I'm like, you really need to put some heavy thought into your front desk,
Yes.
because one, they and the coding and billing people, they hold your finances
Yes.
with what they're doing, because if the front desk isn't capable of getting that information into the system correctly, the back end could be putting everything in there and it's just going to come back rejected.
Right.
And the longer you wait for your money, the less it's worth.
Right.
So it's nice to have, you need to have somebody personable, at the
Yes.
front desk. Nobody
Yes.
wants to be greeted by somebody that's not looking at them and, is scowling.
Right.
But they need to be capable of doing, a lot of these things that really weigh into what is going to happen in the back end, and when you
Right.
get paid and how fast you get paid and all of that kind of stuff.
That's exactly right.
So some of the offices I work with now, I try to get them, if they're larger, to have a front desk person that's truly just the greeter and doing those front desk things, answering the phone, making the appointments, greeting people when they come in, have somebody else that is checking patients out and, doing the rest of those work. So it takes a little bit of that burden off of them, and then they can pay a little bit more attention, because when you're trying to do 20 things, you may forget to copy somebody's insurance card. You may forget to verify if they're a return patient,
Right.
what's still the same, making sure that that stuff's still correct. There's a lot of things that can get kind of shoved aside when that person is, can't even think straight for 2 minutes.
Yeah, whomever is at the front desk, they need to be very detail oriented, because the back office, the billing office, is only as good as the front person, as the front desk, because there's a lot of things that we might have to fix, and so the front desk person needs to be somebody who is personable and, yes, can greet appropriately and just friendly, because it's easier to keep the client we already have, or the patient we already have, than it is to go find a new patient to replace that one that we lost because my front desk girl was not okay. So
yeah, well, and patients shop these days, so that is, yeah.
Absolutely, you're right, they're shopping. So we need somebody who is very detail oriented and who is conscientious of her work. And this is really the central hub at this point of my practice, right? And so we need to be sure that it's maybe not the lowest paid person anymore, because it's important that we have somebody who has some skill set, who has some, I don't want to say integrity, but somebody who has that knowledge of what is important and why it's so important. I have to be detailed, as opposed to, it's either I go work for Dr. So-and-so or I go work at McDonald's, but either way I'm getting paid the same. Sure, I'll go work for the practice because at least it's air conditioning inside. I'm not flipping burgers. Nothing but McDonald's. I used to work there. So like I get it. But I just, you want to make sure that we have somebody who has some skill and is aware of what their responsibilities are and take them seriously so that we're getting the necessary information.
Well, yeah, because now too, when you think of it, they have to have HIPAA concerns too,
Right.
to make sure that, it's somebody that is aware of what all of those things are and what it entails, that they're not, sitting there talking to patients on the phone about what their conditions are with the windows open and people standing right in front of them, and so you're coming in for a follow-up for that pregnancy test that I mean, it's just, you can't, you have to be more mindful of those things these days. And you're right that the personality issue, I've had a lot of people, my husband included, he had a physician that he liked, and he was just like, I just can't, those front desk people, they're just awful. They're mean, they're nasty.
Yeah.
They talk dismissively to me when I'm asking them about things, and he's like, I'm not going to put up with it. So you need like the perfect combination there for those people that are good at, working the front desk, because they have a lot of responsibility.
And their attitude should be, I am here to serve the patient, not the patient is here and you're interrupting me while I'm listening to a podcast, or like, my job is the patient. And as long as there is a patient in front of me, that is my responsibility. Not that you're interrupting me or bothering me. Yes, I have work to do, but if it weren't for that patient, you wouldn't have a job. You wouldn't have work to do. So we need to be mindful of that.
Yep. And here, and I peeked over at my actual LinkedIn thing going here. It says LinkedIn user on here, but I think that's our friend Sonal Patel here. So it said, it's absolutely true. The front desk is vital to the financial well-being of the practice. So, choose those people wisely and carefully, not just because it's your, sister's kid that needs a part-time job, or, let them, I was going to say, let them do charts, but we don't have charts anymore.
There's like other things.
I know, it just came so automatic. I was like, wait a minute, we don't have chart filers, because that used to be the job for family members, was like, you can file charts, as long as you know the alphabet, you were okay. But I'm sure there's other things in the office that they can do. But the front desk really does a lot, and has a lot to do with things. So with the communication was the other thing that we were kind of chatting about. And I remember when I was running an office once, there was always this thing between the front desk and the back office, and the front desk was like, I don't know, those people back there, they're doing the coding, but and then the coders would like, well, if they would put the stuff in the right way the first time, and so they would complain about what they were doing. And so one time I had them switch places, and so I took the coder up front for a few hours one afternoon, and she was just like, I'm like, okay, now do you see why sometimes she forgets to make a copy of the card, or forgets to copy both sides, or can't, doesn't get to something, and then same thing with the front desk. They were totally lost when it came to the coding and billing things, at least back then, and so they really had a better understanding of that. So I think there needs to be better communication between the front desk and the back office, or billing departments, if they're working with like outside companies and they outsource their billing. So what do you think are some ideas that you proactively could kind of take care of some issues like that? Like, what common ones do you see?
For me, what I'm seeing is I see that, I just had this yesterday. We scanned the card, but we didn't enter that information. And so I lied to you. This wasn't yesterday. It was Monday. So we saw the patient on Thursday, and by Monday they had gotten a bill because it was just listed as cash. And so the statement had gone out automatically because, we're in the computer system. And the patient called me and she's like, hey, why am I getting a bill? And I said, oh, it doesn't show that you have insurance. And so did they take a copy of the card? And she's like, yeah, the front and the back. Okay, well, let me look. And oh, sure enough. Okay, no worries. Let me just put that in there and we'll get that out. And so I think that communication is important. Grace is important. We are all busy. And if we're in a very large practice, we have to give each other some grace that sometimes things get missed and it happens. It should be the exception, not the rule, right? And so if it continues to be a problem, then we need to have some training probably. Like there needs to be maybe we need to go back to the very first day and let's kind of remember what your job responsibilities are and what your roles are so that we're getting the information we need. But it's important that it's not the back versus the front. We are one team and we have to work together to get these claims out, to get them paid so that we both get paid. Otherwise, none of us are getting paid. The practice will close and it's over.
Yeah.
So it's just, working together as a team and allowing each other that grace that sometimes you're right, things get missed. It was busy. I forgot to do it. I got the card, but I didn't get it entered. It is what it is. Sometimes, particularly with Blue Cross, and I'm not picking on Blue Cross. I'm just saying, they have those 3 alpha characters, and sometimes we typed in a 0 instead of the O, or vice versa. And so it's just, okay, we have the number. We were a little off. Sometimes we might have fat fingered a number, but I have the card and I can go back to it. At the end of the day, as long as I have the card,
yeah,
I can fix the problem. It's cumbersome, it's time consuming, but it's fixable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the reality is we're doing front office, we're doing back office. What we do is fixable. As long as we catch it in a timely manner, it's fixable. It's not like we sent somebody home to die.
Yeah. Yeah, so Misty, they had the same there with the communication being the key. So yeah. Now I have a question, because I know this has to happen a lot, because I hear it all the time, like how you, if you have any suggestion for helping. One of the things that drives people crazy is every time I have my doctor in Florida, every time I go in to see them, even if I was there yesterday, do you still have you have to answer those same questions every time, no matter how close it was your visit. Right. And I understand why they're asking, right. Do you have the same insurance? Is your address still? And is your phone number still? And they repeat everything over and over and over. Do you have any suggestion of a way that can be doing that without being so redundant? I mean, is there any kind of trick or something is that one of those it is what it is kind of things? Because that is so irritating.
It is very irritating and it's redundant, and you're right. But they need to ask. It just needs to happen, because that's how I confirm that you didn't switch insurances. Yes, I might have seen you yesterday and it was May 31st, but today is June 1st, and I need to be sure your insurance policy didn't change, right? And I might have seen you last month and I might say, hey, are you still at the same place? And you're like, yeah. But, oh, by the way, you moved and you forgot you hadn't seen me since, 4 weeks ago. And so I still have you at, 2929. Is that still valid? And you're like, oh, no, I moved. I forgot to tell you, because you as a patient have told everybody else. You just didn't tell your doctor. And that's important, because then I don't get to send you my lovely little, hello, I missed you patient statements. And that might be important, but it's important to make sure that as providers or within our providers' offices, that we have current information, so that if for some reason you change policies and I didn't know that, I can contact you and get the right information without sending you a bill, without, I can call you. Hey, Betty, by the way, you were here and your insurance said that you're no longer eligible. Can you help me with that? We can get that fixed before we're pushing timely filing limits. So, yeah, it's frustrating on the patient side. It's kind of irritating. I've had people say, well, if I moved, I'd have told you. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what you
no,
say.
yeah.
That's what everybody says. And oh, by the way, they've moved. I'll tell you, uh, I, doing income tax preparation, my question is, has anything changed for you in the last year? No, everything's fine. Really? Because then I go to file their tax returns and it kicks out because, oh, by the way, they got married. How did you forget? How did you not tell me? How do you not know that? So it happens, and I think it's just every industry that has to do with things on a regular basis. So um, I'm not sure that there's a shortcut because at the end of the day, we still want to make sure that we have the current and correct information.
Well, I mean, do you though when you're talking about, do you kind of go through with your front desk people and kind of say, like a scripty kind of thing, like, I know you were recently here, or we have to
Right.
recheck these things for, I think a little explanation
Yes.
might go a little long way. But if
Right.
it's just, they ask you that question over and over and over, where people kind of start to kind of lose it a little bit. I think if there was a little explanation with it,
Right.
like kind of how you were saying, we have to make sure for billing purposes that everything is still correct. So I need to ask you, kind of preface it that way. Is that kind of
Yeah.
how, when you're working with the front office staff?
Well, and that way it's not as irritating. It's I think you're right. A little bit of information helps our patients understand the process and why we're doing it. Some people just don't care and they're like, "Yeah, it's the same place," and they'll answer that question 14 times today, and they're fine with it. And then you have some patients who we haven't seen them in 2 years and they're angry because we asked that question. So I think a little education on the patient side is helpful as well. Um,
Yeah.
because we want to make sure that they understand, kind of like when we talk about coding, um, we give the backstory of why we do what we do so they understand the process. And that's kind of, just educate the patients a little, like, we just need to make sure this is valid for our billing purposes, to make sure that we get this sent to the right payer. Because we want to make sure that you don't accidentally end up with a balance due. We want to make sure we have the correct information. And so, yes, if
Yeah.
there's a problem, we can absolutely explain that, so that, and they typically are like, oh, okay, I'll tell you whatever you want because I don't want to be billed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, putting it out that way, if it's like, hey, if you don't let me know, we want to make sure that you don't get a bill you shouldn't have,
Right.
that I think would go a long way with people. I know I certainly would be like, hey, whatever you need,
Whatever,
just
I
let
will
me
tell you
know.
whatever you want to know, just so long as I don't get the bill.
Right.
Yes.
So we need to know today, Christine Hall. So we have our whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, she forgot one whoa. You forgot one whoa,
Oh,
Christine. Only four.
well, and I'm going to say, we are just covering the tip of the iceberg here.
Just the tip. See, now these are all lovely little inside jokes that if y'all were coming to the retreat,
Okay.
you would understand. So I just had to do that for my retreat people and for Christine, since she pulled up on it. So, but yes. So with our you gave a couple of things, and for those of y'all too that are on here listening, if you have questions and things for Beth, please make sure you go ahead and start throwing them in the chat. I see people are chatting with each other, which is great, but join in the conversation and throw out some questions here. Oh, thank you, Sonal. I don't think everybody does love my jokes though, but I appreciate I appreciate that. I like my jokes, so all right. So you were talking about characteristics, one, just being a polite, pleasant person,
Yes.
is very helpful. There's nothing worse than walking into an office and having the front desk person not even looking at you when you
Right.
come in. They'll have the window closed and they'll be looking down, or they'll have their back to you because they're inputting stuff, and so they're not even acknowledging your
Right.
presence.
Right.
So I think that's kind of your first big thing. And that helps when you do have to ask them those questions over and over and over. If it's somebody you like, you don't
Right.
mind them, because then it's more of like, oh, she's so nice and she has to ask those questions. That's okay.
Right.
What other kind of qualities besides, those patient facing things also are good in helping in the back end, to help out with the billing side of it too? What kind of characteristics do you think are good?
So obviously we want to have a pleasing personality, right? Because for those very factors, like it is easier to get flies to honey than, I don't know what I'm saying, but it's easier when the person is polite and friendly and cordial. Um, they're going to get the information that is required, right? If you're combative and aggressive, look, I'm not talking to you. I'm just not going to give you what you want because you're being a jerk, right? Um, but and I want to be very careful when we talk about this. Um, how you present yourself. You're in a doctor's office. Are you dressed appropriately? Are you, wearing low cut shirts that everybody can see all your parts? I
Those are your naughty bits. That's what my mama called them.
Yeah, keep
Your
your naughty
naughty
bits
bits.
covered. Right. Just nobody needs to see all that. Um, are you looking appropriately? Your hands and nails clean. Um, and I'm not advocating for making everybody wear makeup. I'm just saying, are you clean and are you presentable? Are your clothes clean and presentable? I mean, we're all doing our thing and we're all doing the best that we can, and I get that. But is there a dress code? And sometimes I would say, particularly if you're having struggles with staff wearing clothes that are inappropriate, that maybe we just make a standard, everybody wear scrubs, and then it is what it is.
Yeah.
I worked for a pediatrician, and we had a gal. Um, she was Her parts were covered, but she would wear T-shirts that had sayings on them in a
Ooh,
pediatric office. No, nope, nope. We sent her home twice. The next time you can come back, but you are now wearing scrubs. Um,
yeah.
that's that's I can't trust you. And so your choices are, you either do scrubs and work, or we're gonna have to find somebody else. Like, that's just kind of your choice.
Yeah.
And she came back and she was wearing scrubs, but she would wear her shirt underneath. I don't care, because
Yeah.
your scrub top
Yeah.
stays on. I don't
Yep.
care.
Don't be putting out the business out there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. We do have a couple questions in here for you too now, Beth. Here, John is asking, do you see a better relationship between coders and schedulers? And then he corrected surgical schedulers.
Well, it would. Are we seeing that? I'm going to say sometimes, because sometimes personalities just don't connect. Um, but in theory, in real world, it would be nice if we all had a cohesive team, and maybe some of that is team building, and I don't know. But you want to make sure that we have the same mindset, that we are here to do a job, and the front desk's job, my job, is dependent on their job, and their job is dependent on me. If I'm not getting the bills out, the money's not coming in. And if they're not getting the right information, I can't get the claim out, right? So we want to make sure that there's that cohesiveness, and that, yes, even if I don't like you, or maybe our personalities don't mesh, that's okay. We can have a mutual respect for each other and our jobs, and yes, please, let's work together. I I also know that not everybody thinks that way. So I would
Well,
hope that
I
we
think
have a good working environment.
Yeah, I think the hard thing with sometimes the coders and the surgery schedulers is, all that pre-authorization and
Right.
coding junk that sometimes the surgery schedulers aren't really aware of. And so sometimes the coder can get frustrated with them when they're trying to get things made together. So I think not everybody needs to be a coder, and I
Right.
don't advocate it because I think it's a great profession, but not everybody needs to be a coder. But I think everybody understanding what's involved in the revenue cycle, including all the necessities for coding and getting a claim paid, would make it a little bit smoother when you're asking each other for different things, because then you understand why and what's going on.
Well, and kind of speaking to your point a couple minutes ago about you had them switch spots, it's very valuable if we do cross training. So maybe we don't switch spots, but maybe the front desk sits at the back with the biller and coder for an hour or a couple minutes, just to say, here's why it's important I get that information, and here's a couple claims I can't get out because I don't have that information. Going back to if we explain it to our patients, they're better receptive. If we explain it to the front desk, maybe they're better receptive. If we explain to the billers and the coders, I missed that because I was juggling 40 patients up here at the same time, maybe sitting there, maybe having a couple minutes at the front desk to see the chaos, the organized chaos, if you will. That helps them just understand the process better so that we can give each other that grace that we need.
Yeah. You were getting a lot of claps and thumbs up on that one too, Beth. So so we have another question about, do you have tips? What are your tips for front desk folks to treat patients well and juggle their phone duties, data entry, all of that stuff at the same time?
My personal thought is the patient that's in front of me is my priority. If there is somebody in front of me, that is who takes my attention today, this moment. I can answer the phone. Hold on just a minute. Let me put this call on hold. And I answer the phone, put them on hold, but I come right back to my patient in front of me because they're in front of me right now. And that's who I need to make that connection with. That's who I need to help this second. That's my priority. But then we need to get back to the people on the phone because they're important too. I'm not saying they're less important. I'm simply saying the person in front of me is that priority. So we need to deal with them, and then we need to deal with our phone and dealing with the people. I think the people is the priority. The data entry, while it's important, I cannot be doing my data entry if I have 4 calls on hold and 3 people standing in front of me. Hold on, because I have to put this in because that's important. We just need to prioritize, and maybe part of that is that we have a conversation with the practice manager or the providers. You tell me, here are the things I have to do, and you tell me what the priority should be, and that's what I'm going to do. For me, it's always that person that's in front of me or the person that's on the call. Everything else, I'll figure it in.
And I think that's a great idea, Beth, about putting it to the practice manager or to the physicians themselves, because sometimes I think the physicians, and not belittlingly, but just don't understand what all is done at the front desk. So if a list was to be put in front of them saying, okay, in the morning, on a Monday morning, I remember when I was directing a pediatric office, oh Lord, Monday morning. I mean, we all sat there going, okay, we have 30 seconds till we have to turn the phones over. Because you knew what was going to happen, So if we were to put a list to say, answer the phones, schedule the patients, check in the patients, check out, and to actually list those things and put them in front of them and say, okay, you tell me what's most important to you. I'm sure they would think all of those things are very important. So I think prioritization is fabulous. I mean, when we worked, I remember they would have the front desk people. It was like at lunch, they would be, when the phones were turned off and the patients weren't coming in, they would take turns going to lunch, and whoever wasn't at lunch would be doing data entry then. And then when the other one, then they would do data entry then, and at the larger offices where we had 2 front desk staff, one kind of handled, greeting patients and checking them in and checking them out. The other person would handle the phone calls and the scheduling. So, they could really pay attention to those patients, because that's what people remember is how they felt when they came in your office.
Exactly.
Too. They want to come back.
Right.
So that's very, very important and great. Exactly. Great advice. We have how often would you recommend continued training for front desk staff?
Well, I would say, so I'm going to say on an as needed basis, but it wouldn't hurt if we had like a monthly or quarterly luncheon or a check-in of, you know, here's, hey, just so you know, here are the mistakes that we had, kind of like we're auditing our providers, right? So here's kind of the mistakes, and maybe we don't call mistakes, but here's kind of the areas where we fell short this month. And here are some ways that we can make those better. I think it's important that if we call out a mistake, we also have a way to fix it. We have a solution. We can't just say, here's a problem and you go fix it, because that doesn't help anybody, right? So we want to make sure that we have a way to fix that we have a response or an answer for, here's what happened, and so let's fix that. Now, I know, I was just going to say, I took my husband to the doctor a couple weeks ago, and he was a new patient at this practice. And we had some kerfluffle getting there. We were told to be there at 7:30 because he had new patient paperwork to fill out. And the office staff was in and out and in and out. And so it was 7:45. And I said, okay, it's time to go in, and we get out of the truck to go in. And what are you doing? You can't come in yet. I said, we were told to be here at 7:30. And she's like, no, we don't open till 8. I said, his appointment is at 8. And we were told to be here at 7:30 to fill out paperwork. No, you'll come in at 8:00. Okay, so we go back and sit in the truck. This girl had no idea I was secret shopping her. So she had no idea. And I kind of feel bad, but I don't, because I got treated exactly how every other patient got treated. I understand the problem now.
Yeah.
And so we went in, but, oh, by the way, the doctors knew we were there, still didn't know who we were, didn't know who my husband was, because it was my husband's appointment. And we didn't get all of our paperwork filled out. And they took us back. Nobody collected our copay. But for the fact that it's me, and my husband said they didn't collect my copay, and I said, I know. So when you get checked out, you need to tell them and be sure that they take it. Because then I ended up staying and doing some training. So he checked out by himself. And he was like, I had to tell him twice to get somebody to take my card to take my copay. And this is why we have a problem here. This is why I'm here today, is because we have this problem. But we have to go back to, if this is private practice, how is our doctor or our provider supporting the front desk, making sure that they're getting done what they need to get done, and we're not short-circuiting them.
Yep. Yeah, the copay thing is a big thing. I've been in places where the front desk people are really hesitant to ask people for those copays. And that's one of the first things I do with front office staff when I'm in there, to ensure that copay is to be collected before they ever see the provider. One, if you don't ask them for it, they're not going to offer, to pay you, unless you ask them, and it's contractually obligation, it's a contractual obligation that you do so. So you really do have to make sure you're getting those. And, that's upfront money, that you're getting on the spot, that is helping towards your bottom line immediately, so that's very important.
Well, I always say, like, you wouldn't go to the grocery store and cash out and go, I owe you $25, but I'll pay you next time, or just send me a bill. There's no reason you don't go to the mechanic and go, oh, just send me a bill for that. They've rendered service, and your car does not leave their shop until you have paid in full. There's no reason our providers are not getting paid. We've had these conversations over the years, and one of the very first things I do when we have this copay conversation is, okay, here's the practice. Let's pull it up on our maps and tell me where the ATMs are around the practice. I want to know all of the ATMs around the practice. And so, like, that's an assignment. Okay, tell me all the ATMs around your practice. Well, now we know. And so, okay, that's fine. You bank at Chase. Chase is a bank here in Arizona. That's fine. You bank at Chase. Chase has an ATM right across the street. I will hold your appointment for 10 minutes while you run across the street and get your $20 copay. We will hold your appointment. Go. I forgot my debit card. Okay, The bank is open. Feel free to go in. I'll hold it 15 minutes, so I'll let you go through the line. Like, we take cash, check, debit card, credit card. There's no reason, and you're going to tell me in this day and age, and I know it happens, we forget our wallets, then you shouldn't be driving, because your ID and your driver's license is probably in that wallet. But we need to be sure that we are getting that money, because our providers are due that. That's part of their reimbursement. And so, yes, Betty, thank you for coming. Your copay is $25 today, and you don't have your copay. Okay, I'll hold your appointment. You can go right across the street, and I'll hold it until you come back. I'll hold it for 10 minutes.
You need to reschedule.
Yes, I will hold it for 10 minutes, or you're welcome to reschedule. But also, that should be part of our conversation when they're scheduling the appointment is, okay, well, I see that you have a $20 copay. Please be prepared to pay that when you come in.
Same thing with balances. You have a patient balance. I just want to let you know so that you're prepared when you come in to pay that balance, or speak to, if you have a person in your office for that, speak to, someone about, that balance that you owe, if it's like a large one for something like a surgery you had or something like that. So, yeah, and people are given some good ideas here for like motivating, congratulating them on good jobs. I think that can be done a lot more. I mean, I know a lot of offices that do that, and the physicians even are very good about saying my staff is great, and but you can never hear that enough. I think that appreciation, is very important.
Absolutely. I think it's very important that if we are going to talk about their mistakes or their shortcomings, it is doubly important that we talk about the good things they do. We need to build them up and give them that confidence. And okay, so you missed it this time, but you'll learn for next time. This was a learning opportunity. You won't make that mistake. But I'm going to go back to that kind of just a little bit. When we do those awards or rewards, it's not a pizza party. Make it something exciting. Everybody's like, oh, we did a pizza party. That's great. Not everybody eats pizza. Pizza really is not an exciting thing sometimes. And so make it something that's memorable, that they're really going to cherish, and that the practice has spent some time thinking about, not just, woohoo, we ordered pizza.
I was going to say, Beth, I didn't mean it, but it made me think of like when you were a kid and got pizza parties when you were like in third grade for that was like a thing. And we had, here, I think it was somebody made a suggestion, movie tickets, if no eligibility errors, all copays collected. So you can like little competitions about it. People, even as adults, we get into that kind of stuff. Y'all, I tell you, putting gold stars on physicians' audits, when I would talk to them, they would like fight over each other to see who got a gold star. I had one doctor one time ask me, it was just like, well, how come I didn't get a gold star? Doctors also got a gold star. Little stuff like that works,
And it's finding what works for them. So I have 14 credentials. I have 14 credentials because I want to learn. I'm always learning. I want to learn more. But then I'm that weird person who I then have to take the exam to make sure I learned what I learned, which then adds another credential. But a friend of mine, she's highly competitive, and she might be on here, and I'm sorry. She had to get 14 too to compete with me. Listen, if that's what makes you tick, go get that education and get those extra certifications so that you can say you have 14 just like I do. Knock yourself out. I'm not competitive. Like, that doesn't trip my trigger. But it does for some people. So it's fine. You find what works for them.
Yep. So here, Misty made a good suggestion, role playing, with staff. That's very good, especially for newer front desk people, because they may not, understand. They think all patients are going to be nice. Well, not all patients are nice either. So, they have to be prepared for those kinds of things.
Right.
And Sonal making the ever important. Yes. Yeah, we know OIG is watching, your payors, your contracts, lots of problems there if we're not getting those copays.
Well, it artificially incentivizes patients to come to your practice, which, could be a problem, right? And so we don't want to make it a routine of waiving copays. We need to be sure that we're collecting those and that our patients are paying what they're supposed to.
Yep. And then lady, great comment here, about
Yeah.
treating patients with compassion as if it were family members. I like her end though, or even better, because sometimes you, you don't treat your family. I don't like that uncle, so, so yeah, you don't want me to treat you like a family member. So no.
My sister, it's a long story, but my sister fell down and broke her shoulder. Yeah, you probably don't, I don't have a lot of mercy. You probably don't want me at your front desk with her.
I'd be laughing at it. No.
Yes. I'm like, you're a dingbat. What did you do? All right, fine. I have to treat you better than family. All right, fine.
All right, all right. Well, we, believe it or not, are at the top of our hour already,
Oh,
Beth. So
that was
this
fast.
was great. We had some great questions and great comments and everything from people today. I so appreciate all the involvement. This was a great
Yeah.
session. And again, don't forget, go check out Advanced Coding Services. You could check out the retreat in September. And again, there's one in October in Arizona. So make sure you're going and looking at those. And if you would like to find Beth on LinkedIn, where did I put your LinkedIn? I can't find it now. Well, you can go to her website, advancedcodingservices.com. And you can also find Beth. I think I overdid your banner that had it on there. I did over it. But you can also find Beth on LinkedIn. So make sure you look her up and you're paying attention and watching for her. So everybody is being giving all our thanks to everything. So thank you, Beth. And we'll definitely have you back on again to chat about some other stuff too, because this is fun. I like having people on here that I like talking and chatting with and having fun with. So thanks everybody. Beth, any closing remarks about all the stuff we've talked about today?
I just hope that we are treating our front desk people with love and respect and giving them grace. And I hope to see everybody at the retreat.
Oh, wonderful. All right, y'all. Thanks. And we will see you again for the next healthcare happenings. So you can see what is happening in healthcare. Thanks.
Wonderful.
Have a good day, y'all.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
And I forgot to say Happy Baby Friday when we started. So Happy Baby Friday.
We were so excited.
I know.